There are no gatekeepers deciding which sites you get to access. There are no toll roads on the information superhighway. This set of principles, the idea of net neutrality, has unleashed the power of the internet and given innovators the chance to thrive. Abandoning these principles would threaten to end the internet as we know it. That's why I'm laying out a plan to keep the internet free and open. And that's why I'm urging the Federal Communications Commission to do everything they can to protect net neutrality for everyone.
The President of the United States trying to make a case there for so-called net neutrality with Miranda Kahn, J.D. Hayworth. Now, it's interesting. People hear the term net neutrality. Oh, it sounds great. As a matter of fact, right. there are some numbers. Those of us who've been involved in politics kind of pay attention to polling, and unfortunately, we're unable to bring you the visual of those numbers. But apparently, some 82% of Americans say, "Hey, oh, here it is. Yes,
there you go.
There's
right
net
there.
neutrality,
56%
right there on the screen."
It. 26% somewhat, and overall 82% support that. Basically, what they're saying is the Federal Communications Commission wants to treat the internet or companies that provide internet service kind of like they would utilities.
Well, yeah, but here's the big problem.
And saying it's not fair that you charge more for you to have faster internet access. So I know you're just like itching in your seat.
Well, no, because again, you have a real discrepancy between what our president says to us and what he's doing. He says leave the internet free and open. So why is the FCC, without any type of congressional action, without any legislation on this?
But they're not getting involved. They probably.
But you don't have the use. Anyway, as you can see, we're getting a little bit of a discussion right now. Let's bring in the guy who really knows about the internet.
Yeah, good idea.
And maybe he'll be neutral on this subject of net neutrality. Stephen J.J. Weisman, as always, sir, thank you for Skyping in here. And of course, you see the work of Stephen J.J. Weisman at his website, Scamicide.com. So is this a governmental scam? Because I got to tell you, Stephen, when the FCC doesn't make public what they want to do, and we expect a 3-2 partisan vote, I get a little suspicious.
Well, first of all, don't be suspicious about the fact that this wasn't made public yet, because that is actually the standard procedure that before a draft is voted on by the commissioners, it is done privately. However, it's a 322-page draft proposal from Commissioner Wheeler, whose kind of history is interesting on net neutrality. He was in favor of it, then he was against it, now he's in favor of it. Some people also are concerned that it may be solving a problem that doesn't even exist, because right now there is a pretty good consensus between Republicans, Democrats, and even some of these internet service providers recognizing the importance of net neutrality. The big concern is when Commissioner Wheeler went to court the last time, when they wanted to put in regulations, they were told the FCC didn't have the authority. The judge did tend to indicate, though, that if the internet was classified as a utility, that the FCC would have the authority. So that's what they've done. The concern, of course, is that if it is classified as a utility, potentially that allows the FCC to tax it, to have heavier regulations. The commissioner has said they're not going to do that. His words were they're going to use a light hand. But that's not really much of a legal guarantee.
So what do you think is going to actually happen?
Well, I do think right now, and what's kind of interesting is the whole reason net neutrality is going to go through is because millions, literally 4 million people sent in emails to their congressmen and to the FCC in favor of it. Net neutrality is good. Net neutrality is going to work. It's going to happen in some form. I think right now Congress has kind of backed off and said, we're going to see what those regulations are. Whatever those regulations are, they are going to end up being challenged by the major internet service providers. I think probably on the ground that the internet is not a utility, but ultimately I do think it's all going to work out. I think people recognize the importance of net neutrality. I don't think it is necessarily going to stifle innovation so long as the government does do the light hand. But the FCC has really got to follow through with what they're saying.
Well, I still have the concern that some sloganeer has put forth that the internet could become the Obamanet. What concerns me, of course, Congress has not offered the legislative framework, and it appears to me that the FCC is trying to usurp that role. Tell you what, since Stephen's an attorney and an expert, we'll have him back talk more about this subject and other matters of concern concerning the internet as America's Forum continues.
I think Paul Meisner from Amazon really nailed it. From consumer standpoint and from our standpoint, we're results oriented. We want to make sure that at the end of the day, the internet's open, and I think for 99.9% of internet users, they don't care about how that happens, if it's Congress or the FCC, what section of the statute it comes from. They want to make sure at the end of the day they're protected, the internet's open, there's no blocking, there's no discrimination, rules apply to wireless as well as wireline.
Back now on America's Forum with Miranda Kahn. We just heard the president and CEO of the Internet Association, Michael Beckerman, telling Bloomberg TV all consumers want is just to get online. Congress, FCC, doesn't make any difference, just as long as it's there. Okay.
Well, according to the latest poll, that's what 82% of the population wants.
I appreciate results-oriented.
But you're worried about taxes and regulations.
I'm worried about handing the keys to the internet to people who love to tax and who love to use things to political advantage. But Stephen J.J. Weisman, I have a sneaking suspicion as we continue the conversation, he's going to tell me, J.D., calm down, relax. So, are you? Are you going to tell me that, Stephen?
Not really.
Okay.
To some extent, because I think that it is correct. Consumers aren't really looking ahead at this thing. They are concerned with just, I want to make sure we're going to have our access to the internet. And one of the things here is you really do seem at this point in time to have bipartisan support for an open net neutrality. It is really important to our country. But here's the problem, and the problem is, I kind of share your concern. Whether it is done in a regulatory manner or done initially through Congress is significant, because if it is merely classified as a utility, which is what the FCC wants it to do, we have to rely on the good faith of the FCC as a political institution itself, not to tax as it would have the right, not to overly regulate as it would have the right. And frankly, I tend to agree with you, JD, on this. I would like to see Congress act first and then have this followed up by consistent regulations with what Congress sets, because I think that would be more productive. And frankly, I'm not sure what the rush is here, because the internet providers are not setting these higher rates. They are listening to the public and they are investing. So I tend to agree with you. I don't think you should be too concerned. However, I share your concern, because the potential of the way this is done could make problems in the future.
All right, case closed. Stephen agrees with me, kinda. But you've got something else.
I do. Can we switch gears?
Sure,
you good with that? Okay, let's talk about something else. It's been reported that because of the cyber breach on the health insurer Anthem, between 18 and nearly 19 million non-customers could be victims in this attack. What is the latest that you've heard about this?
Yeah, that's in addition to the perhaps 80 million people who were members of Blue Cross Blue Shield programs with Anthem. The reason these additional people are coming in is this system that is operated around the country. If you are a Blue Cross customer of Anthem and you are out of your district, you may use Blue Cross in another area. And there's about 8 million people who have done this, and their information, their names, their birth dates, their social security numbers, they have been hacked. And this is because the healthcare industry has not listened to the FBI, which issued warnings last summer about the vulnerabilities of medical institutions for identity theft. And it's not as bad as you think. It is so much worse, because identity theft, when it's medical identity theft and accessing of health insurance information, can actually allow the corrupting of someone's medical records such that a person could actually get a wrong blood type for a blood transfusion. So this is really serious.
And to think, when I was in Congress, we went through all those steps to try and keep medical records private, but at the same time say one day all these records will be kept via computer rather than mountains of paperwork, and we see the problems there. Stephen J.J. Weisman, as always, you are the source to whom we turn for information on the internet, and of course your blogs and your blog entries can be read at scamicide.com. Thanks for agreeing with me that, about the internet and Obamanet. That's the real scam. It's great to have you, Stephen. When we come back, the way I see it, really.